many of you like to be interrupted? Anybody? You do, Jackie? I love knock-knock jokes. Frank, can you help me out with this knock-knock joke? Okay. You start. Who's there? Okay, I'll start. Knock, knock. Interrupting cow. Moo! You get that? I like that one. I like that one. Most of us don't like to be interrupted. Right, Jeff? Most of us want to do what we're doing, and we want to finish a task before someone comes in and bothers. You know, that's something I really, really struggle with. Because in ministry, you can be interrupted at any time. Because you never know when someone's going to need you, when someone's going to need to talk, or they need you to pray with them, or they need some counsel, or they need an ear to bend, or somebody just to yell at. But interruptions are something that we experience every day of our lives, whether we like them or not. Some interruptions are major, some are minor. Some are circumstances, some are people. Some are unexpected, and some are anticipated. Interruptions are, however, a daily reality for most of us. I came across this quote about this, and it says this: "What is the difference between an obstacle and an opportunity? It's our attitude toward it. Every opportunity has a difficulty, and every difficulty has an opportunity." See, I have learned through the years now to not get so upset over interruptions. I start looking at them as opportunities. I try to do that with so many things in my life anymore. When I'm going through a tough time, I try to look at it as an opportunity to learn something, to have my faith strengthened, to rely on God more. And when it comes to our interruptions in life, we need to look at them as in the same way, as opportunities. Because, folks, how we handle these are a great deal to do with our success or failure, our joy or despair, and our positive witness for Christ, or whether we're going to have a negative witness for Him. As we continue our study this week, we're going to look at an account of Jesus' life in Matthew chapter 14. This, some believe, was Jesus' longest day of ministry. And we find where Jesus turns an interruption into an opportunity. Following, we're going to look at 4 principles that Jesus practiced to turn interruptions into opportunities. And these 4 things we can apply to our lives, which will help us be less stressed. It will help us to be more positive. And the bottom line is, it will help us live more like Jesus. As Juliet read the scripture this morning, I'm going to read it one more time from Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 through 16. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." And Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." Jesus, the background behind this is a long day for Jesus. He has put in a 14, probably 16-hour day already, from sun up to sundown, teaching and preaching and healing and listening and dealing with people. And if you have ever dealt with people that are in need, people that are hurting, people that have something that they want from you, it can be emotionally and physically draining. Jesus had every right to say, I'm done for the day. You all come back tomorrow. But it says he had compassion on them. He even got in a boat and traveled across the Sea of Galilee to try to get to a place where there weren't anybody, where there was no one there that would be bothering him, a place that he could just get away to and rest. But when he gets there, there are already people waiting on him. That can be frustrating. And many of us would say, forget it. We'd either get back in the boat and go to another part of the sea, or we'd just go out onto the ocean and just stay there for the night to get away from everybody. Or we'd just send them away like the disciples said to do. But Jesus didn't. Because you see, Jesus saw this interruption to his life, his interruption to his plans, as an opportunity to witness, and an opportunity to minister, and an opportunity to build some relationships and some bonds with people that needed him and needed loved and needed help. Here's the 4 things I want us to look at today with how Jesus handled this and how we can handle it and things we can learn from Christ. First of all, Jesus planned time free from interruptions for rest. Back in Luke chapter 5, verse 16, it says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." First of all, we see Jesus, he often took time away just for him and his Father. Just time for him to meditate, time to rest, time to not just rest physically, but rest emotionally and mentally. Jesus took time just to get away. And there's not a thing wrong with that, folks. Every one of us needs some time to get away, just ourselves. We call it today some me time. Anybody ever take me time? You need that, even if it's for 5 minutes, just to get away. I remember Lisa, when the kids were little, she was a stay-at-home mom most of that time until they got into school. And she couldn't even go to the bathroom by herself without a kid traipsing in or knocking at the door wanting something. And she just said that. I remember her saying, I just need some me time. We need that or we'll go nuts. If you're not taking a little bit of me time because you think, I've got too much to do, I'm too important to take time off, are you more important than Jesus? Are you needed more than Christ? Even in the Old Testament, we see that God set aside the Sabbath, a day of the week, for people to rest from their labors. Some of us work 24/7, it seems, 365. And you need some me time. You are going to burn yourself out if you don't slow down and take that time. There's nothing wrong with taking some time off. There's nothing wrong with taking vacation time. Jesus took that time to get away, and he strategically planned it. Now, it says he periodically did that. We see here, though, that he's planning on that, but a crowd comes, and it keeps him. He has a choice to make. Do I take my me time, or do I spend it ministering? Because Jesus periodically took me time, he was able to say, okay, I can help these people. It's not going to mess up my plans overall. And sometimes, folks, we need to minister to people even when we do have that me time. Jesus planned time for this. We all need time to be emotionally and spiritually rejuvenated. I remember hearing a story about a father. He was one of these 21st century dads, the stay-at-home dads. And he had 3 kids, 3 little boys, and they were active little boys, hyper active. Imagine having 3 Dean Johnsons. That's what these kids were like. And he was just so tired. And he was playing with them outside one day, and they were playing cops and robbers. And he was the robber, they were the cops, and he was running to get away, and they went bang, bang, and he fell to the ground and just laid there and didn't move for quite a while. The neighbor saw this and thought the man had had a heart attack, knowing that these kids were probably driving him totally nuts. And he ran over. He said, Bill, are you okay? And Bill opened one eye and he says, shh, I need the rest. Sometimes we need that rest. We need to take time out. And Jesus did just that. We need to be rejuvenated spiritually. But we can do that periodically through the day. We can do it every day. You don't have to go to down to the beach or up to the mountains or on a cruise in order to do this. You can take moments during your day. And one of the best ways to get rejuvenated is taking time to just read God's Word and to pray and to meditate on it and to take time out for that, not just me time, but it's me and God time, because we need that. We need that time. And you'll be surprised if you do that every day how rejuvenated that can make you. Also, coming to a Bible study during the week is an opportunity. We used to have a couple here probably 15 years ago, Eric and Sheila Newhart, a younger couple. And he worked as an insurance adjuster, and he traveled all over, dealt with all kind of people, and it was a stressful job. And he looked so forward to Wednesday night Bible study. And I remember him saying, he said, I need this in the middle of the week, because halfway through the week, my battery needs to be recharged. And that's how we need to look at it. It's an opportunity to recharge, not just from God's Word, but being around other Christians, other people that are going through some of the same things we are, that will give us the strength to make it until we can get back together again on Sunday. So Jesus took the time to rejuvenate, to try to become emotionally and spiritually strong again. Secondly, Jesus determines the nature of the interruption in order to decide how to respond to it. He looks at the situation and tries to figure out how to best respond to this interruption. Sometimes we don't do that. We just react to situations rather than thinking them through. And when we do that, we can sometimes hurt other people. We can sometimes make ourselves look bad. Sometimes we can cause issues that may be very hard, if at all possible, to reconcile. There's a story about a little boy. This was back in the 1800s, and he was in the general store in town, and there was a big barrel of molasses. And while his mother was shopping, he would go over and stick his finger down in the barrel and lick the molasses. And he kept doing this, and the owner told him, Johnny, stop doing that. And as soon as he turned his back, he'd be back there again with his finger in there licking. And he's thinking, this kid's a brat, he's not listening, and he's contaminating this whole thing by putting his finger in there, then sticking it in his mouth and putting it back in again. So the mother wasn't doing anything about it, so this store owner, this was back when other adults could discipline your children and not get arrested. Now this is a little bit far-fetched for him to do, but he went over, he says, you want to taste it? He picked the kid up and he dunked his head right down in the molasses and pulled him back up out. He says, now what do you think of that? He said, I think I need to get me a longer tongue. He was thinking outside the box. He was already trying to figure out how to respond to the situation. We need to pray that God gives us what we need to do the best in the opportunity that we're given. In John chapter 11, verse 6, it says, "Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days." Now, the story behind this is Jesus is off preaching and ministering, and his good friend Lazarus is very, very sick. And his sisters, Mary and Martha, send word to Jesus to please come and heal Lazarus because Lazarus is dying. And rather than coming right away, Jesus waits and doesn't get there for 4 days. Well, Lazarus dies. And he's been dead for 3 days. He's in the tomb when Jesus arrives. And when he gets there, Mary and Martha are upset because they said, "Lord, if you would have been here when we called you, he would have lived." Well, Jesus decided to respond to the interruption of coming by waiting. Now, some would say, well, that's unfeeling, that's hurtful, that caused them a lot of pain. It caused the death of a good friend. What kind of a guy is Jesus to make people wait, to put them through that kind of thing? But Jesus determined that this interruption was an opportunity to show the power of the Father. And he waited until he knew that Lazarus had died. Because Jesus knew that it wasn't the end for Lazarus. He wanted to prove to people that he was the Son of God, that he had power over death, and he showed up and he raised Lazarus from the dead. I love the way this is stated in the King James Version. They go to the tomb, and Jesus instructs them to roll the stone away, and Jesus says that he's going to raise him. And one of the sisters says in the King James, "But Lord, he's been in there for 3 days. Surely he stinketh." You're dead for 3 days. No embalming. You're going to stinketh. But Jesus called out, "Lazarus, come forth!" And he comes out. And it doesn't say he stinketh. Jesus can not only heal, but he can take the stink away. See, Jesus had his reasons. He thought about this. He looked at the nature of the circumstance, and he looked at it as a possibility to be able to reach someone with the good news. We need to determine the best way to handle situations as we look at them as opportunities. Do I rush right in, or can I hold back and wait? What do I do? How do I handle this? We have to determine if an interruption is an opportunity to which we should say yes in order to serve God or build relationships with others. But we also need to ask ourselves, is this something negative that I should stay away from and not do? You know, that's the hard part. Knowing when and when not to answer an interruption. We're not called to just drop everything all the time to help anybody out. We have to, as Jesus did, look at the circumstance and weigh things out. We got to look at the situation. For instance, as a lady, you're driving down the road and you see someone broke down along the road. As a good Samaritan, would you stop and help them all by yourself to see what was the matter? Would you? Patty would. She packs a gun. But most people, it wouldn't be safe, would it? Even for a man to do that by himself, it's maybe not safe to do. See, we got to weigh things out. There are other ways to handle it. Everybody has cell phones. Call somebody. We've got to think about how we're going to handle the situation. We've had so many people come to this door and knock, asking for money, asking for help. Jackie has worked here. She's with us today. Good to see you, Jackie. As our secretary for a long time. And there'd be people come. And sometimes some of you people would leave here on Sunday or through the week and not shut the door and lock it, and she'd come in here and the door was ajar. So she would have to go through this whole place to make sure that she was going to be safe. Now, when Paula took over, that wasn't an issue because Paula packs too. So, there are times that we can't just jump in and do because it seems like the right thing to do. Sometimes we have to put it off. Sometimes we have to wait like Jesus did until it's a comfortable situation. It's a safe situation. So yes, we need to be the Good Samaritan. Yes, we need to help people. But even Jesus sometimes took his time and he waited. And we need to do the same thing sometimes. It's just praying that God gives you the wisdom to know when to wait and when to act. Thirdly, Jesus was totally focused on where he was. The missionary Jim Elliot, that ended up giving his life down in Central America for the cause of the gospel, said, "Where you are, be there." Now, what does he mean by that? Where you are, be there. Well, I liken this to my home. There are times I come home from work, I am tired, I plop down in front of the TV, and I start watching it, and I'm sitting there for hours beside my wife. She's on the couch, and I don't say a word because I'm watching TV. And she'll say, "Honey," she says, "I need you to be with me." 3 feet away from you. What do you mean? I'm here. No. Be with me. In other words, focus on me. Give me the attention that I want and that I need. Not the television. Not the newspaper. I see you wives looking at your husbands going, "Listen to this, Ron. Listen to this." But But we need to be focused on where we're at and what's going on and why we're there. There's a lot of times, folks, that happens in our homes. It happens with our spouses. Sometimes it happens with our kids or our grandkids, or when we go places with friends, our mind's someplace else. And you know the saddest place that happens? Right in this room on Sundays. Our minds aren't on Jesus a lot of times. Our mind is on the ball game that's on later today, or the movie that we're going to go see, or the family reunion we have to get out of here in time to get to, or whether we're going to beat the Baptist to the buffet. These are the things that we're thinking about, or we're looking and saying, "Oh, that little baby is so cute. Hi there. Hello, cutie. How you doing?" And then the kid starts crying and making noise, and we sit back and complain about it. It's not the child that needs to be taken out. It's the adult that's making the child do that. You know?
Amen, brother. Amen.
When it comes to being focused, we need to realize we are here to serve the Lord and to worship Him. It's not to think about this or that or complain about that or find fault with that. We're here for what reason? To worship. And that's hard to do when you have a negative spirit, when you're just finding bad things and problems. Jesus was totally focused where he was. Now, let me ask you something. How many of you want a good sermon? So I've been praying for one of them for 20 years now. You know, your prayers may get answered one of these days. I can give you some names of some other churches. Actually, I've got the list right here, just waiting for this opportunity. See, that's looking at interruption as an opportunity. Okay? If I, as the minister, can stay focused, or the worship leader, or worship team, or the pianist, or the Sunday school teacher can stay focused on what we're here for and what we're here to do, and we're not bombarded with problems before service starts, we can be focused, and we can give a better, I hate to say performance, because I'm not performing for you people. I'm performing for God. You're just getting the benefits from that. If I and the worship team and the pianist and the guitarist and people that are involved in the worship can be focused on why we're here, what we're doing, and who we're doing it for, and not worrying about this problem or that problem, don't you think God's going to get more glory? Don't you think God's going to get more praise? Don't you think that's going to make more of a positive atmosphere? One that says, hey, I want to come back next Sunday, not, oh, we got to go to church again. You see, Jesus saw the need to focus where he was and why he was there. So, God deserves our best. So when we come here to worship, let's be focused. Let's be focused. Some of us try to focus. We have fought all the way from home to here. We have been upset. We have said things that are harmful and hurtful, but we feel good about those things we've hurt them with. And we get out of the car and we walk through those doors, and then we go, hi, how you doing? It's so good to be here today. Praise God, I just love Jesus. I don't like you right now, but I love Jesus. And I'm so glad to be here. How are you going to focus on Christ and worshiping Him when you're feeling that animosity, when you're feeling that negativity in your spirit? God deserves our best, folks. Fourthly and lastly, Jesus saw interruptions as opportunities to do something even greater than what was on his schedule. How many of you are schedule-oriented people? Tammy, you write stuff down, don't you? You've got a list of things to conquer today. These are the things that have to get done, and you are going to know things Scott has to do today. And she writes those things down.
She doesn't write it, she uses Excel.
Okay.
Pray for Scott.
But the point is, some of us are so schedule-oriented, and if something happens to mess up our schedule, oh my goodness, it's the apocalypse. The Lord is coming back. Our lives are a mess now because we can't handle it. Because we are so driven by our schedules. But we need to see those interruptions. We need to see those interruptions at work in our lives, anywhere that they take place, as an opportunity to serve the Lord. There's a preacher named Ed Watts that I read about. He was visiting a local department store with his wife, and they had just purchased a piece of luggage and a cooler. He was waiting for his wife to finish the rest of her shopping, so he dragged the luggage and the cooler around with him, and he decided, I'm tired of this. And he went into the shoe department because he knew there were seats there, and he went and he plopped down and was resting. He just wanted to get home and get out of the store. He was tired. Because, you know, men go out to buy, women go out to shop. So he's bought, but she's shopping. And he's tired and he's frustrated. So he sits down, and one of the sales clerks come up to him and says, Sir, can I help you with anything? He said, No, thank you. I'm just waiting on my wife. At that point, the man behind him, who was in the same boat Ed was in, he says, I'm waiting for my wife too, but I never thought of bringing a lunch and an overnight bag with me before. And that opened up a conversation between the two of them. I like that. I'm going to have to use that. But it opened up an opportunity for them to talk. And in doing that, even though that man was interrupting his rest, Ed took the opportunity to share with him some things. And that man shared some problems he was having in his life. And they built a friendship. And they started going places and golfing together and fishing together. And before you know it, that man started coming to church. And that man and his wife became Christians. She even repented of her shopping addiction. But they became members of the church and became active members of that church. Had he just let it go, because I'm too tired, I need to sit here and just chill out. But no, he took the opportunity. Folks, that's why and I'm not patting myself on the back. This is just my personality. My kids hate going places with me. My wife hates going places with me because I'll make friends any place I go. And if I don't make friends, I find out I'm related to them somehow. And half of them deny that we're related after we talk about it. But I do that for the opportunity to maybe share in their life and share Christ with them. We need to take advantage of those opportunities, even when it interrupts our plans. Because bottom line, folks, what belongs to God? Everything. Does your house belong to God? Yes. Does your bank account belong to God? Yes. Do your clothes belong to God? Does your wallet belong to God? Does your time and your day planner and your calendar belong to God? Yeah. So when he calls us to do something and the opportunity is there, the interruption's there, we need to look at it as an opportunity to serve him. It's God's time, not ours. He is in control, not us. We need to remember that what we see as an intrusion may be the providence of God working in our lives. Proverbs 27:1 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring forth." We need to be alert to the possibilities that an interruption may have greater potential for good than what we had on our schedule. This may be the only chance we have to do something for the Lord with this individual. And God's put him out there on a silver platter for us to minister to. As the worship team comes, I want to share a story. Someone asked Winston Churchill one time what most prepared him to lead Great Britain through the dark hours of World War II. This was Churchill's response. "It was the time I repeated a class in grade school." Then the questionnaire asked, kind of in a smart way, "You mean you flunked a grade?" Churchill said, "I never flunked in my life. I was given a second opportunity to get it right." God is giving us second chances many times in our lives. He's the God of second chances. Sometimes. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, it says, "But if your hearts set apart Christ as Lord, always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you, and give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect." Folks, that person that interrupts us, that may be the only chance we get to share the good news with them, to show the love of Christ. Let's not look at those things as interruptions anymore. Let's look at them as opportunities for God to do great things through us and for those people as He gets the glory.